Hello and welcome. My name is Bridget Williams and welcome to the Bay State Banner Week in Review. We begin this week with 52 projects focused on affordable housing development, historic preservation, and access to open space. They will receive a total of more than $38 million through Community Preservation Act funding. And that funding was announced May 1st. For affordable housing projects, the funding is important as one of the only handful of cities and state resources directed toward that sort of development project. This Roxbury-based company is developing projects 75 and 86 Marcellus Street, which are slated to create 20 new home ownerships units and received almost $3 million from the city. Affordable housing projects made up half of the funding and generally scored the biggest awards overall. The 7 projects each received an average of $2.7 million. When it comes to open space and recreation funding, a quarter of the Community Preservation Act funding, Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, and Mission Hill, scored big. Over half of the open space funding in this round will go to projects in those neighborhoods, nearly $6 million altogether. And that funding will help create new community spaces as well as meet other community needs. Vivian Morris, who founded the Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition, is celebrating the award of about $161,000 to support the creation of a new community garden on River Street in Mattapan. Morris says that space will help bring neighbors together while also increasing access to healthy food. And she's seen it work. 7 years ago at the nearby Kennedy Community Garden, where Morris served as a coordinator, connections between neighbors smoothed the way for the formation of the Edgewater Neighborhood Association. That organization has been an important voice for the community, including in generating new green spaces like the Edgewater Food Forest that officially opened in 2023. Residents across the city are interested in community gardens too. So according to Grow Boston, the city's Office of Urban Agriculture, as of last spring, wait lists for community garden plots across the city varied widely but reached as high as 158 people. Few had no wait lists at all. Awardees say that the funding will mean positive benefits to the communities they serve. The organization Children's Services of Roxbury is receiving $357,000 to support preservation efforts at the group's Roxbury headquarters, plus another about $750,000 to transition a parking lot behind the building into a green space to run programming and welcome the community. Sandra McCroom, president and CEO of the group, says what it will mean for us is really what it means for the community. Next up, we get into what's next for the former site of Kearney Hospital. A new report from a state-organized working group released last month offers its recommendations for the future of the 13-acre site. Last August, Dorchester's Kearney Hospital was shuttered as the long-embattled Steward Health Care faced a Texas bankruptcy court and pressure from Governor Healy to get out of the state. 5 of the 7 Massachusetts hospitals owned by the for-profit healthcare company scored sales to continue operations while Kearney and Neshoba Valley Medical Center and Air faced closure. The site has sat largely unused since, but a working group assembled by the state and including city leaders like Dr. Basola Ajukutu, Boston's public health commissioner, reached a benchmark in 7-month process where they released their 60-page report with 6 overarching recommendations and a host of proposed action steps. Those recommendations focused on access to emergency services, primary care, and behavioral health, reuse of the Kearney Hospital campus, and increased support for social determinants of health factors like affordable housing, access to healthy food, and economic mobility that impact health before residents even step foot in a hospital. Central to the recommendations is the reuse of the site for health. Already, during the lead-up to its closure, Mayor Michelle Wu said she'd use the city's authority to push back on attempts to rezone the land for a different use. The report avoids drawing one specific vision for what should be on the site and declines to take a stance on specifics around ownership structure or on whether the existing facilities should be reused or new ones should be built. But it does emphasize a need for things like closing the gaps left by the 50 inpatient behavioral health beds the hospital had or increasing the access to primary care services in the area. And it recommends increased support, financial and otherwise, for resources like nearby community health centers as the situation at the hospital sites unfold. The release of the report doesn't mean smooth sailing, especially in a landscape where funding across the board seems increasingly strained. That landscape has meant the working group had discussions about how to account for healthcare financing challenges and ways to make sure the site can be profitable and sustain operations. The recommendations in the report are an important step, but figuring out how to pay for them is the bigger issue, says Ojokotu. Over the next few months, the working group will meet again to figure out the answers to those questions. In the meantime, they will continue to meet with stakeholders to map the path forward. In our next story, spring break wasn't just a break for students at the Edward M. Kennedy Academy of Health Careers. Instead of relaxing, a group of 11th graders spent their week in a certified nursing assistant boot camp prepping for the CNA exams happening this month. The boot camp held from April 22nd to the 25th gave students hands-on practice with key nursing skills like catheter care, cleaning dentures, and repositioning patients, all part of the official exam. Junior Sarah Hernandez said the training helped ease her test anxiety and boosted her confidence in the field. And she's not alone. Many of those students are planning futures in nursing. This boot camp is part of a bigger shift at the school, which is now pushing CNA certifications earlier. That means juniors can start working in healthcare this summer and use their senior year for jobs or college classes. It's all part of a $37.8 million partnership between the school and Mass General Brigham, funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies. Their goal? Build career ladders for students so they can get started with a high school credential, then grow into higher degrees over time. The school is also expanding its healthcare pathways to include emergency services, medical imaging, pathology, lab sciences, and surgery-related careers, and is planning to move to a new unified campus to support that growth. With 100 new freshmen joining this fall, Executive Director Jennifer Smith says the demand is there. Now the focus is on delivering opportunity. We just need to give them the chance, she said.
Greeting viewers and welcome to The Intersection, the place where ideas, events, and policy come together to shape the public health, safety, and vibrancy of our shared community. I'm your host, Suffolk County Sheriff Steve Tompkins, and together we'll examine a multitude of issues of interest as we travel along the many different avenues that make up the intersection. While applauding the achievements of American women is necessary and appreciated, it does not pay the bills, secure retirement, or build generational wealth. After the ceremonies, hashtags, and ad campaigns fade, the pay gap still stands. Here's the truth. Women make up half the U.S. workforce, but earn only 84 cents for every dollar paid to their male counterparts, despite having higher levels of education. In fact, a Pew Research Center study found that women ages 25 to 34 are 10% more likely than men of the same age to hold a bachelor's degree. The disparities are even sharper in fields where women predominate. In sectors such as healthcare and social services, fields critical to our communities, women are paid just 43 cents to every dollar earned by men doing the same work. The financial impact is devastating. Over the course of a 40-year career, a woman stands to lose over $462,000 in earning due to the wage gap. For women of color, the loss is even more staggering, often exceeding $1 million in lifetime earnings. The gap is felt beyond the individual, rippling outward to families, communities, and the entire economy. Former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reported that closing the gender wage gap would grow the U.S. domestic product by 5%, nearly $1.5 trillion. Despite decades of advocacy, much of the systemic bias remains. Gendered expectations about caregiving and outdated workplace norms continue to sideline women professionally. Paradoxically, the very responsibilities women are expected to shoulder, from child care to elder care, are used as justifications to exclude them from higher paying positions. If we are truly committed to honoring the contributions of women, we must match our words with action and deliver economic justice. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, stay informed and stay involved. We'll see you the next time at The Intersection.
Next up, we talk about the Freedom Rally Remembrance. On a rainy day in late April 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the Boston Common bandstand and addressed a crowd of 20,000 people who had marched with him from Roxbury. 60 years later, on a similar rainy day, thousands gathered at the Trinity Church in the Back Bay and marched to Boston Common in commemoration of that monumental event. Anniversaries are often a time for celebration, but Martin Luther King III told us that Saturday's remembrance of the Freedom March was more about re-engagement. Because as we take a snapshot of where we are in issues of education, in issues of poverty, in issues that we raised at that time, it feels like we still have a long way to go, King said. It doesn't mean that there hasn't been any progress, but it means that at this point, it's almost as if we have to really quadruple our efforts. Cambridge native and current Dracut resident Doreen Wade was at the 1965 Freedom Rally, an experience she recalled an inspiring and life-changing one. She said she came out to Saturday's rally because she feels like we're going backwards in time. Quote, "We're losing rights that we shouldn't be, we're losing businesses, and we need to be out here speaking for ourselves and striving hard to make sure we have what we've worked hard for." Irene Descharnais was also among those 20,000 attendees of the 1965 Freedom Rally. She remembers holding hands with the other marchers. "I never believed that day that I'd still be here in 2025 saying, 'Ain't done yet.'" At the Charles Street entrance to the Boston Common, the group stopped and heard from several city leaders, including Mayor Michelle Wu. Wu formally dedicated that corner as the 1965 Freedom Rally Square, which is designated with a blue sign on the light pole. It was in a church in this very city and a steeple right down the road that the lanterns were hung that first kindled the flames of democracy, Wu said. Amari Parrish Jeffries, president and CEO of Embrace Boston, helped lead the march to the Common. "We've seen attacks on some of the major museums and cultural institutions," he said, "and it's up to us as the next generation to ensure the collective memory of where we came from is extended as valuable lessons for the future." Martin Luther King III was one of the final speakers. On the bandstand, he urged that we all should do a little something to make the world in which we all must live in a little bit better than it was when you arrived. "So let's get to work," he encouraged. All right, let's get into some sports. All right, let's talk about the baseball powerhouse right here in Dorchester. The Boston International Lions, coached by Johan Villalona, are one of the top high school baseball teams in the city. With a 10-2 record this season, they're gunning for a spot in the MIAA state tournament, and they're not far off. Villalona, a Bronx native and reigning BPS Coach of the Year, has spent the last 12 years building this program into a contender. Last year's playoff run ended in a semifinal loss to Boston English, but this year, they're 2 games ahead of the defending champs. "I love teaching this game," he said, "and I love this school. This team is young, hungry, and proud of the tradition that we're building." His starting lineup includes Brian Pimentel, a dual threat on the mound and in the infield, third baseman Soniel, infielder Brian Arias, and outfielder Edwin Polanco, plus a strong supporting cast. But keeping talent can be tough. "Our players get tempted by a bigger program with flashier campuses," Villanova said, "but I tell them, reality is we work for what we want. I stayed because I'm loyal to this community, and I want them to feel the same exact way." With grit, heart, and talent, the Lions are making their mark. Now their eyes are set on one thing, a state title. All right, next up in sports, we got the Knicks stealing Game 1 and 2 from the Celtics in a game that brought back memories of past Celtics-Knicks playoff games, and it was the Knicks rallying from a 20-point third-quarter deficit to steal the opening game of their best-of-7 NBA Eastern Conference semifinals series. Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby led the Knicks' offensive attacks with 29 points each. Mikal Bridges, who had just 8 points playing 51 of the 53 minutes, provided the key defensive plays for the winning New Yorkers. But the major story of this game centered on the Celtics missing an NBA record 45 three-point field goal attempts and blowing a 20-point third-quarter lead to hand away home court advantage in this series. The box score reads Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown scoring 23 points each to lead a Celtics offensive attack that placed 3 players in double figures. Derek White, who had 19, Drew Holiday, who had 16, and Peyton Pritchard, who had 13. Tatum and Brown had bad shooting nights in the loss. More glaringly was the fact that the defending NBA champions blew a 20-point lead on their home court to a team they had beaten 4 times in a row during the regular season. Further, the Green Star center Kristaps Porzingis didn't score in 13 minutes of playing time and did not return to the game after the second quarter. Anunoby scored 12 points in the pivotal third-quarter run that saw the Knicks outscore the Celtics 20-6 to erase the double-digit lead. The combination of Brunson and Anunoby outscored the Brown and Tatum duo 58-46. Well, now the Knicks need only 2, again erasing a 20-point Celtics lead in the third quarter, losing 91-90. This is the first time in NBA history that a team has come back from 20 points to win in 2 consecutive playoff games. Mikal Bridges stepped up again during crunch time to block Jason Tatum's pass to Jaylen Brown, preventing the Green from a chance of winning at the end. Bridges scored 14 points in the fourth quarter before the block. The Knicks went on a 23-6 run in the fourth quarter while the Celts missed 12 straight shots and went more than 8 minutes without a field goal. Jason Tatum had 13 points in the loss and struggled in the final frame. In a stunning trend, home teams still have not yet to win in playoff games in the second round at all. All higher seeds, they are now 0-6 after the Celtics loss. Next in sports, the WNBA is officially in its 28th season and it's soaring. This year's momentum was on a full display at Carver Hawkeye Arena, where a sellout crowd welcomed home Caitlin Clark, the NCAA's all-time leading scorer, now suiting up for the Indiana Fever. Clark dropped 16 points, 5 assists, and 6 boards in an exhibition against the Brazilian national team, including a signature three-pointer from the very spot on the court where her 22 is now stenciled. That game, 108-44 blowout. And more importantly, a symbol of just how far this league has come. When the WNBA tipped off in 1997, many dismissed it as a summer filler. Some called it David Stern's folly, but the former NBA commissioner stayed committed. And today, his dream is thriving. The first WNBA dynasty, the Houston Comets, dominated the early years with 4 straight titles led by Cynthia Cooper, still regarded as one of the greatest to ever play the game. This year, all eyes are also on the Connecticut Sun, known for being consistently good, but not quite great. The franchise is hoping to change that with 3 fresh draft picks: Anisha Morrow, Sonia Rivers, and Raya Marshall. The goal? To finally bring home a championship. With rising stars, team-first basketball, and real cultural impact, the W has never been better. The only question now is how high can it fly?
Check 1, 2. The show goes on every night. Did you book your trip yet? Boston never gets old.
All right, next up, let's talk about homegrown hustle meeting historic opportunity. Ricardo Luis, a Roxbury native and UMass Dartmouth graduate, just became the first supplier diversity advisory group member to land a driving contract with the city for the White Stadium project. But his path wasn't straight and it wasn't easy. After a short stint in corporate America, Luis realized it wasn't for him. The spark? A chance encounter with an old valet customer who simply told him, "You should start your own company." That seed grew into Privé Parking, a valet company born right in Roxbury and built on 3 things: leadership, local roots, and the advantage of staying small and agile. His first client, Toro Restaurant in the South End, a place where he used to work as a valet before launching his own brand. Now, with a White Stadium City contract under his belt, Luis is making history. But he's still grounded, serving as board treasurer for United Neighbors of Lower Roxbury and crediting his father, a Haitian immigrant and mentor, Bill Singleton, for always believing in his vision. Luis has a message for young entrepreneurs everywhere. It's going to be hard, but that's part of the journey, so embrace it. One day your story will make sense. Next up, we turn to healing, legacy, and community. On May 11th, hundreds will gather in Dorchester's Townfield Park for the 29th annual Mother's Day Walk for Peace, the city's largest event honoring families who've lost loved ones to violence. For Janice V. Johnson, this walk is personal. She lost her brother in 2006 and then in 2003, her son. But rather than sit in silence, she chose to move, literally, with purpose. Janice first joined the walk nearly 20 years ago, before she even knew where the path would lead. The path eventually brought her to a job at the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, the nonprofit behind the walk. Today, she's their development events manager, helping raise a crucial fund to support survivors like herself. The walk funds everything from burial support and healing workshops to re-entry programs for recently incarcerated individuals. It's also one of the only local organizations offering support not just to victims' families, but also to the families of those who've caused harm. Last year, after her son's death, Janice honored him by producing a track that sampled his actual heartbeat. The song played across the walk route, a rhythmic, raw tribute to a life lost too soon. For me, she said, it keeps my son alive. The walk is not just a fundraiser. It's a show of unity, of faces on t-shirts, of names on banners, and families walking shoulder to shoulder. And Janice's message to anyone grieving is simple: you're not alone. Whether you've been directly affected or not, this walk is a call to action, to remember, to honor, and to heal together. So if you can, lace up your sneakers and walk for peace, and if not, just know the doors at the Peace Institute are always open. That's a wrap for this week's Bay State Banner Weekend Review. Thanks for tuning in on an exciting week. My name is Brigé Williams. I will see you all next time.